Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. I guess in the interest of full disclosure, which I try to do on this program, I guess you could call me a gun collector. I'm not exactly a gun seller. I can't remember the last time I sold a gun. I generally buy them and just keep them. Now, that was not the case with a guy named Bryan Malinowski, who was a collector of coins. He had a very responsible job. He was the administrator of an airport in Little Rock, Arkansas, and he got shot to death by the federal government because ATF agents staged a SWAT-style raid on his home and shot him in the head because he didn't have a $65 permit, a federal firearms license to sell guns. Lee Williams joins me now, who's chief editor of the Second Amendment Foundation's Investigative Journalism Project. Mr. Williams, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here.
This sounds like it was completely unnecessary. Happened about a year ago, March of last year, March of 24. And Mr. Malinowski was not the kind of person that I think most people would imagine would draw the negative attention of the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms people, the ATF, because he ran an airport, made about $250,000 a year or so working for the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, collected coins, but also collected firearms. So I put myself in the same category. I collect firearms. I collect coins. Am I in danger of having the ATF come to my house and shoot me in the head because I don't have a permit?
Yeah, I think we all are. I mean, yeah, he enjoyed collecting firearms. His father passed away, gave him his firearm collection. He loved going to gun shows. He also had collectible coins at his gun show table. He certainly didn't need the money. Like you said, he made $260,000 a year as executive director of Little Rock's airport. And before, about a month after he was shot and killed, the Biden administration closed what they called the gun show loophole. If somebody would have contested him, the law at that time was vague. It exempted people who occasionally sold guns as a hobby, but not spelling out how many sales was too many to get an FFL. Now the ATF is saying, well, he had to have an FFL. Well, that's all moot because he's dead.
Well, and in fact, Mr. Williams, if I were going to sell a gun to a friend, if a friend said, hey, I'd like to buy one of your guns, I generally don't sell my guns, but I would say, let's go to an FFL and we'll make the transaction. In Arkansas, that was not required at the time, was it? He could go to a gun show and make a private sale, and he didn't have to run it through an FFL. Fair to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Same thing here in Florida where I'm at. You don't have to get the government involved for a sale of a gun. But yet the ATF, and here's the thing, neither he nor his wife had ever been charged with a crime, much less found guilty. They lived in a beautiful home. And what gets me, having been in law enforcement, having spent 10 years as a cop, there's so many errors here that they committed, any one of which, if they didn't, he would still be alive. I mean, you want to do a search warrant. It's not for dope, so you don't have to kick doors worrying that he's going to be flushing drugs down the toilet. What's he going to do with guns? I mean, they could have visited him at work. His office was in the airport's gun-free zone. They could have sat down and say, hey, we got a search warrant. Let's go to your home. They could have stopped his car. They could have knocked on his front door during daylight hours, shown him the warrant and ordered him to comply. I mean, they could have surrounded his home and called him on the phone, ordering him and his wife to come out. If they would have done one of those things, he would still be alive today, and he would have a legal case against ATF, as opposed to the lawsuit that his widow has going against him right now.
Well, in fact, I got to thinking, Mr. Williams, because he was going to the airport every day for work, but he was under the same rules everybody else is, he would probably occasionally be in the secure areas. He wouldn't have been allowed to have a gun. They could have stopped him as he walked out of his home at, I think, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, because he went to work a little later in the morning than many of us do, and said, hey, Mr. Malinowski, we need to talk to you. We need you to go. We've got a search warrant for your home. You can go up and tell your wife that we're going to search the home, and here's why. And what were they searching for that would have confirmed that he was somehow breaking the rules by selling too many guns?
Yeah, I have no idea. All they had at that time was a search warrant. They had no arrest warrants for him or his wife. The whole thing is crazy. And like I said, this is not the way you do things like this. I've done hundreds of search warrants, and you always look for the easiest way out. Usually upsets the officers because they all want to kick down doors. I know I did. But you have to do what's best for society, what's best for the officers, and what's best for the person, because he had a huge home. They waited 19 seconds after banging on the front door before they started kicking it down. He and his wife lived on the other side of the home. They had no idea who they were. And then they covered up, ATF agent Adam Bass covered a video camera lens at the exterior door that the couple of Malinowskis could have seen that they were agents on the monitor, but they covered that up with tape. And when they got inside, they never yelled police or search warrant or anything like that. They were more concerned about getting through a double door. And their mistakes continued after they shot and killed him.
Well, let me ask you this then, Mr. Williams. I carry a concealed weapon, and I'm aware that if I ever have to pull it out and use it, I'm going to have to defend my decision to do that. If somebody breaks into your home and does not identify as police, it's reasonable that I would pick up a gun. I would have a gun in my hand. He had a gun in his hand, apparently, when he was shot. Why weren't charges brought against the ATF agents back in March of last year?
That's what I don't understand. Having been in several shootings, I don't understand why that agent was not fired, charged, but he's acting like a hero. You should see what he said in response to some allegations that Mayor Malinowski's attorney is asking him. It's incredible. And they shoot him, he goes down. Not one single agent rendered any aid to Malinowski. And you can see in the video he's heard struggling to breathe, lying on his side. He died 2 days later, and they just left him lay there. It's the most
look, as a cop, you would have been
seen.
expected to give aid. I mean, and we
Without
see
a
body
doubt.
cam videos all the time where somebody is shot in a perfectly you do a traffic stop, the guy comes out of his car with a gun pointing in the direction of the cop shoots him, and the minute the guy goes down, you see police rush up to give aid to the person they just shot. Why? Because there was a reason to shoot him to stop the threat, but the minute the threat is stopped, your absolute obligation is try and save the man's life, right?
Without a doubt. And here they had one item that actually said police on it. They were all dressed in these different camo outfits. I never saw a badge. They had a body bunker, which is a ballistic shield that had big police on it. They left it outside the door. They were unidentifiable as law enforcement, especially if you're in a dark hallway like he was, and you've got these intense flashlights on the agent's weapons pointing at his face. There's no way he's going to see anything. They should have been calling, police, don't move, police, police, police. They never did any of that.
Wow.
It's just so sad because, I mean, he was running the airport. He was a well-known and beloved member of society. And the fact that ATF has done nothing about this, I mean, ATF agent Tyler Cowart, Cowart, is the one that shot and killed him. And he's a free man, still working for ATF.
Look, I'm normally on the side of law enforcement, but I always tell my audience I'm on their side until they break the rules or break the law. Mr. Williams, we'll be back in touch. That's Lee Williams from the Second Amendment Foundation's Investigative Journalism Project.